Welcome to Feedback Friday number 16. Brenton here from Effortless Swimming. Now, if you last through this video without having an epileptic fit, well done to you. Obviously the quality is not great and the lighting's not great either, but we work with what we've got. So this is a short video, right? Shorter than most of our other videos. What we're looking at here is the breathing. So there's a lot of different things we could look at focusing on. One thing I just want to point out to you here is the breathing. And I see this in probably 1 out of every 8 or 9 students that I have, is a head lift before they take their breath. So I'll show you here just as we come into the next shot. One thing we want to try and get rid of is too much of a head lift before you turn to breathe. So right here, all right, on the next stroke, you can see right here, before she goes to take the breath, the eyes look forwards. They're looking a long way forwards. The head lifts up all the way above the water. Then she turns the head to the side. Does get to a good position there. You know, right here we've got that split vision. We've got one goggle in, one goggle out, and the head, you know, half of the head in, and almost in that sort of neutral spine position where we're horizontal in the water, turning the head to the side and not lifting up too much. So that's great. That's where we want to be. But if we can get rid of this head lift, it's going to do a couple of things. So what often happens here, if we look forwards and lift the head up, your head weighs a couple of kilos. So naturally, if we're going to lift something up that's a few kilos above the water, something's got to give, and that's often the legs. The legs will often drop down there, and you can see here the knees have started to come down a little bit. If we had that underwater shot, you'd probably see the legs just sinking somewhat, and that's going to be extra drag and resistance on top of the thighs there. And any extra drag and resistance is multiplied in water as opposed to being outside of the water. So really the number one thing we want to do in swimming is reduce our drag, and by lifting the head, that's a big creator of drag, not just on the thighs, but often on the torso and the upper body. So if you can keep generally quite a horizontal position in the water, that's going to be minimum drag for you. As soon as we lift up too much and we expose the chest to the oncoming water, we sort of increase the space or increase the surface area that we are going against the water there. So we want to minimize that as best as possible. The other thing that often happens there when we lift our head is it can create sometimes a big gap in here near our shoulder. And you know, if you watch, there's a video of Nathan Adrian on YouTube somewhere where he's talking about his technique. And one of the things he mentions is that when he goes to breathe, one of the things that he'd been working on was keeping his shoulder near the side of his face, kind of closing this gap up as he turns to breathe. Now, you don't want to overdo it. You know, like a lot of this stuff we talk about, you don't want to overdo it and exaggerate it too much. But if the shoulder sits low and we lift our head up, it's almost like this little pocket gets created here, which is hitting that water front on, and that's extra drag and resistance. So we want to minimize that as best as possible. So the way, you know, sometimes the way I'd go about practicing that, there's a drill where you can basically just have your hands on top of your thighs, you're kicking face down in the water, and I just want you to kick like that and then just turn your head to the side and breathe, then turn to the other side and breathe. So you're trying to do that without any lift of the head at all. And you might find that you take a little bit of water in first off. You might need to stop, get your breath back. That's fine. Do whatever you have to do. But that's a really simple drill. So kicking face down on the water, in the water, turning your head to the left, come straight back, and then to the side. That's a really good one that I've been using with my students to stop them lifting their head, getting a feel for just almost being on a skewer. You know, if you've had chicken skewers before, all right, it's like all the way through here, you're on that skewer, and so we don't want the head or the spine to really move too far beyond that. Now, that's, you know, obviously that's one thing. There's other things we'd probably look at after that. We can look at the alignment. How could we keep it a bit straighter? We'd probably look at the rotation somewhat too, through the hips as well. And then, there's a couple of other things as well, just in terms of the reach and extension and catch. But that's kind of an easy win where we could find a little bit of time there, just based on, you know, working on that for maybe a week or two. So that's a bit of an easy win there. Now, if this sort of stuff if you like this sort of stuff and you'd like it done for your own stroke, if you're a little bit, if you feel like you're lost with where you can find speed, then one of the best ways to sort of do this for yourself is inside the Effortless Swimming membership. So this is where I work with people from all over the world. We've got people in the US, Canada, Romania, Switzerland, Sweden, Australia, New Zealand, Malaysia, all over the world inside the Effortless Swimming membership. What those swimmers do and those triathletes do is they send me a video of their swimming, and I do a more in-depth analysis, and then I give them the way to go about improving that with some drills, some exercises, how to include it as part of their normal training routine. So you don't necessarily need to be doing more on top of what you're doing. It's just about adjusting something slightly. So for most of the people in there, they will join, they'll send in a video, and then I'll give them a few things to work on for 3 or 4 weeks. Then they send in another video. Again, we have a look at what we want to focus on from there. And we do that over the first few months. And then we usually have them send in a video every 6 weeks to 8 weeks, depending on where they're at. Because once you've sort of got the foundations and the base of your technique there and happening really well, then the changes that we make are more incremental. They're a little bit smaller, and it's a little bit just more of a refinement. So that's why we tend to push it out a little bit more towards the end of it. But first off, there's always quite more major things to work out, and that's why swimmers can often see big improvements early on, and then it becomes less once you get to the pointy end of the field, once you're coming out in that top 40, 30, 20% of your races. So if that's something that sounds like would suit you well, then there's a link below here in the description going to the Effortless Swimming membership. Check that out. It's not open at the moment, but we do open it from time to time. And the reason for that is we've got quite a big group in there, so I only let in a few people at a time so that I can work with people and give them in-depth analysis on their stroke, and work with people closely enough so that they get the results that they want. So check that out. There's a link below in the Effortless Swimming membership. If you like this video, then make sure you subscribe, like the video, and please share it with anyone that you think this would be helpful for, because we started off a number of years ago, very small, and now we've got people viewing this from all over the world, which I really appreciate your support and sharing this and commenting. It means a lot. So thanks very much for your support. Make sure you subscribe below. I'll see you next week with another episode of Feedback Friday.